When you hear the word cult, what's the first thing you think of?
Hello everyone, my name is Joshua E. Fabio.
Usually some magnetic person has managed to persuade a bunch of people into doing outrageous things, right? Now obviously this is where the phrase cult hit or cult following comes from in entertainment. Some stars are just so charismatic and have such a hardcore following that it becomes analogous to call their stardom a cult following. Of course, it's not a real cult, it just means they're more dedicated than your typical fans. And in today's video, we bring that concept over to MMA. Those stars seemingly could do no wrong with a die-hard fan base through thick and thin, and in many cases, it's a fan base that propelled them far beyond that cult-like beginning. I'm Bailey from MMA On Point. Shout out as always to our Hall of Famers out there, guys. Thank you. And these are the 10 biggest MMA cult heroes. There are plenty of big names in this video, but many that aren't on here because they just became instant stars and got immediate mainstream fan support. Israel Adesanya, for example, knocked out Derek Brunson and instantly took off. There wasn't really this incubation cult period. He started like any other UFC prospect. People on this list all had either careers that maybe at times weren't going well or were completely overlooked or overshadowed to everyone apart from a die-hard group of fans who kept singing their praises and following them until the fighter became known among the masses. So let's get it started with number 10, Carlos Condit. It helps to have a nickname straight out of a cult film.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Where as a young kid, the natural born killer finished everybody.
This is going to be interesting because Condit very good on his feet. Mauricio's got a hold on. He's hurt. He's hurt. Right left combination and right up Condit.
Oh my God.
Trying to finish out for Mauricio. That's it.
Over.
Oh my goodness.
Possibly he can pull his foot down. No, the arm bar. And that's it.
Straight shoot in, gets the takedown right away. Wow.
Can't keep his head bowed down like that. He's got to posture up and let his hands go.
Taking his time, maybe a little too much time, and Carlos Condit does no submission. Up and tries to go for a triangle.
There's the triangle.
Now he's got.
Oh, looks tight. He's got a slam.
Trouble here.
To the arm. He's going to be out. Oh, he's got the
Carlos Condit. What an upset. Break trip.
The natural born killer made a name for himself the day he took Jake Shields to a decision at the Rumble on the Rock tournament. A ton more fans were now on board as the natural born killer was then unleashed upon Japan, where he was ripping arms off and stomping on guys' heads. And then even cooler, while on this crazy finishing streak, he proved he was championship level, picking up the WEC title and finishing 5 guys straight. And it was this fight style that endeared him to a giant underground fan base way before he ever hit it big. But his 8 Mile performance wasn't when he got the interim shot against Nick Diaz. His coaches advised him to play it safe and not everybody liked the strategy.
On the internet, there's a lot of people that are complaining that you quote unquote ran and that they were unhappy with your performance in the fight. And
I landed a lot of effective strikes. I stuck to my game plan. I did what I went in there to do. I hit him, I punched him in the face and kicked him in the face and, landed more effective strikes than he did in the fight. And, that's what it boils down to. Knocking down the untouchable GSP with a head kick just gave him so much more credibility.
When I had a kick to the head tonight, I had a flashback of Matsara.
And his fan support was proved really when just 2-2 in his last fights, he was given a title shot out of nowhere and gave Robbie Lawler the fight of the year and absolute war for 5 rounds. And he should have been the champion, at least in my opinion. Number 9, Paddy the Baddie. After McGregor lit a spotlight on Cage Warriors, everyone was looking there for new talent.
Cage Warriors yesterday at the weigh-ins came in significantly over, I believe in the region of 6 pounds over the contracted weight.
The Paddy Pimblett!
At 19 years old, but looking about 13, with a nickname like the Baddie, while finishing people, Paddy quickly started to build an incredibly dedicated following of local fans and attracted the attention of UK and European media. 21 years old is pretty young for a guy to take a title fight, but he packed an entire venue in Liverpool.
Flying in a big right hand! Paddy Pimblett! He's done it! And he runs into the crowd there, Brad. You can see it. He's buried in an absolute sea of humanity. What a stunning knockout, Brad. This crowd is going absolutely crazy.
I mean, there's just no telling what makes someone so magnetic like this to a fan base, but it's incredibly obvious he already had a true cult-like following. Paddy was offered a UFC contract, but what makes this interesting though is that he turns it down. He stayed in Cage Warriors and had some losses along the way, but plenty of fans stuck with him, supporting him until...
It's over! From Liverpool's own Paddy Pimblett.
With nothing but support for his style and his gimmick, he predicted when he got to the UFC, everyone would love it. And he was right. He got a first round knockout as well. And then he said,
I'm the new cash cow. I'm here to take over, and watch how many people come out the woodwork this week, lad, and call me out. Watch.
A lot of regional MMA stars have a loyal following, but Paddy the Baddy, when he came into the UFC, he exploded into mainstream popularity. Between his enormous YouTube following or our videos with him that just instantly exploded, general sports fans in the UK just started following him.
Who is here to support tonight?
Paddy the Baddy! Paddy the Baddy by Das Chocolate! England!
Fans wore wigs, t-shirts, and chanted Paddy the Baddy. His popularity has definitely been in flux since then, but his success story is kind of undeniable. Number 8, Charles Oliveira. The stars truly aligned in what must have been a magical night for Oliveira in his UFC debut, 40-second submission and 50 grand bonus for sub of the night. But immediately, his UFC career went off the rails. He was missing weight, getting fights overturned for illegal stuff, even getting finished. But he was also pulling off submissions we never saw, like calf slicers, and also getting anaconda chokes. Even if he was hit and miss, his fan support was growing. Throughout the career, there were constant setbacks, but still all these old fans that had followed him since that spectacular UFC debut. He clearly had so much raw talent and was always going for the kill in ways that excited or surprised the fan base. Nearly all his wins were finishes, even if he was being thrown in at the deep end a little too early.
Everything kind of exploded for me. I mean, very early. There I was at the UFC, just fighting with the best. So the featherweight experience was just, it happened really quick.
He was always seen as dangerous if he could put it together, and by the time he beat Kevin Lee in Brazil, his life became a movie. From the slums of Brazil to a UFC championship, he went on a crazy win streak. And very quickly, he became everyone's favorite fighter.
It's not about the victory, it's about the path and everything that I've been through. It's just, I've always said, it's right here, it's in my heart, it's in my mind. We're bulletproof. The champion has a name. His name is Charles Oliveira.
Number 7, Josh Barnett. Kids winning those chess tournaments was what it must have been like for Josh Barnett to win the heavyweight title. I mean, he had to beat a guy nearly 20 years older than him, and Josh was the one that needed steroids to do it and got kicked out of the UFC. So kind of like a Jorah Mormont character from Game of Thrones, he went into exile. So yeah, how exactly did a drug cheat become a cult hero among fans? The fact that he kind of never lost in the UFC, and then what he did next, kind of started to build a legend for himself. He traveled to Japan and finished his next 8 wins, including a rear naked choke over Yuki Kondo, an armbar of semi-shield, and then 3 more straight submissions in Pride. As well as that though, Josh was becoming a bit of the counterculture figurehead as he rejected the Zuffa era. Dana's always had his detractors from day one, and Josh was an old school guy. He didn't really care for Dana or the control he felt the industry was falling under with Zuffa.
I'm not a big Josh Barnett fan. I think he's bad for the sport. You know, all the shit that comes out of his mouth is stupid, and I'm not a fan. You'll never see him in the UFC, ever.
There's a part of me that truly understands the idea of obliterating and destroying and annihilating any of your competition. But what he's working in is a subjective field. Dana White, truly, as far as a real, like the actual brute aspect of fighting is concerned, he's a hindrance. He's unnecessary. And that's the only way they're going to
sport, though.
Who?
Him.
We could definitely get a trained monkey to get in there and do his job.
And there were a ton of fans that agreed with him as he was a massive leader rallying against the UFC, which only got him more hate, which only added to the bad boy persona, which a lot of fans already were kind of rallying behind. But this is how crazy his fandom was. Even after testing positive again against Fedor and basically tanking an entire promotion with affliction in the process, fans still stuck by him. Eventually, he couldn't avoid the UFC anymore, nor could Dana avoid him after Strikeforce was for sale. It was something fans never thought they'd see.
Well, you know, if we're really being honest about it, there's really only one big show in MMA at any rate anymore, and that's the UFC. People would come up to me and go, oh, Dana this and Dana that. I'm like, well, you know, actually, as much as you'd probably love to hear me throw that guy under the bus, it's really just all a matter of how it lined up business-wise for both parties. So
it kind of brought back together all those cult fans that followed him over the years, with the communities coming full circle back to the UFC. Even the steroids story came full circle because he tested positive, proved it was a tainted supplement, but still lost 2 years of his career and then became a crusader against testing policies, and then eventually the UFC themselves for fighter treatment and pay. Still a popular figure amongst the community, still plays Magic the Gathering, really is kind of that lone wanderer who did it his own way. Number 6, Jorge Masvidal. When you think about it, Jorge Masvidal is one of the original underground MMA kings. He was in the early Kimbo Slice videos, and then he proved he was a legit fighter when he scrapped his way to the Florida AFC title. It was a big deal there when he stopped the undefeated Joe Lozon as well.
I think the ref's going to stop this fight. Here it is. It's over.
And then if fans tuned in to watch Eddie Alvarez on Bodog fight, they also got to see Jorge Masvidal. He picked up 3 straight wins there, including stunning everyone by devastating a UFC veteran in Eve Edwards.
Stronger guy.
And if the Kimbo Street fights weren't enough to build a fan base, these straight finishes definitely were. This guy was already a legit fighter with a ton of street credit, who was now proving he could do it at a pro level. It was like if you wanted to guarantee a good fight, you could give this guy a call. He even fought the champ Melendez in Strikeforce when he was at the height of his reign. The hardcore following he had cultivated was 100% behind him throughout his long and storied career. 5 very close decision losses was enough to frustrate Masvidal fans though when he made it to the UFC. But then, almost like a movie script, he disappeared for 2 years, and then at a point in 2019 where guys he'd lost to, like Gilbert Melendez, were retiring, Jorge came back and immediately exploded in popularity as he knocked out Darren Till and then Ben Askren. And his part in the BMF title fight was really a representation of his popularity as one of the most veteran and legendary guys still on the roster. He might have taken a while to get there, he might lose sometimes, but he's always been a bad motherfucker. Number 5, Kimbo Slice. Years of viral YouTube videos will do something for anyone's popularity. I think in 2024, we know that by now. Kimbo Slice had become an internet icon before he ever got into MMA. It got to the point that fans of his videos wanted to see him fight in the UFC so badly that they signed the only guy to ever have beaten him in a fight, Sean Gannon. Kimbo's early fight was against Ray Mercer in a small promotion.
See the way Kimbo was able to break that. He's so strong. He's actually got him inside control. Mercer in his guard.
But it still sold 20,000 buys, which is apparently more than Francis Ngannou just did in the PFL. The fandom and the viewership from the YouTube videos encouraged Elite XC to offer him a contract, and his first appearance to a larger audience was meteoric.
The man-born Kevin Ferguson is getting a chance to live the American dream, and listen to this crowd. Pool collected already, a body shot, ripping away a cantrell. Oh, yeah. This one is over.
What followed after that win was a series of fights with Elite XC, with more and more people tuning in to watch the street guy turned pro MMA fighter throw down. It culminated in 6.5 million people watching him knock out James Thompson. That's a lot of people.
Seth Petrozelli is fighting Kimbo Slice. This is a last-minute replacement. I gotta think Seth Petrozelli's gonna fuck him up.
Well,
yeah.
You're right.
Save America.
Right,
oh my God, you're fucking right.
Yeah.
Oh, what'd I say?
Kimbo sucks.
But after years of trash talk and slander from Dana White, he offered him a spot in what was going to be the now most watched season of The Ultimate Fighter out of all 32 of them, or whatever it is.
Nobody knows.
Maybe Kimbo's career didn't turn out great in terms of achievement, but he always brought massive numbers wherever he went. Number 4, Chuck Liddell. I'd say it is quite ironic that the guy that took the entire sport from underground-like status into the mainstream was also himself an underground hero to the fan base before he broke into worldwide popularity. You know, for years and years, the UFC's golden boy hadn't been Chuck Liddell, it was Tito Ortiz.
There's 13,000 people streaming Tito Ortiz. The fans is my fuel. I'm gonna keep burning and burning and burning, baby. It's on.
He was the star that Dana and the Fertitas thought they could push when they bought the company. The loudmouth bad boy, he was the champion, and Chuck Liddell really, at that point, was kind of just like his training partner. When he did get more of a spotlight on him in the UFC though, he started to steal the show and slowly take over the division.
Randleman, a former heavyweight champion, taking on really one of the quiet killers in this world of mixed martial arts, and that is Chuck Liddell. Liddell throws the punch, and this one is over quickly.
It was a massive, massive deal when he knocked out Kevin Randleman. And then he kept taking out elite contenders like Bustamante and Vitor Belfort.
How does that make you feel to be the #1 fighter on the planet getting that title shot coming up?
Well, I thought I was the #1 contender for a long time, but now it's finally guaranteed, so feels great. I got my shot to be #1 in the world. That's what I want to do.
It got to the point where everyone thought, hey, Chuck should be fighting Tito for the belt, right? And then when they felt like Ortiz was running away from Chuck and was scared, it only grew the Iceman's legend as the boogeyman of the division. It really was quite a compelling narrative, and it got tons of people on board with Chuck. And then when he finally beat Tito, it was a massive moment for the fan base and proof for all those followers of Chuck that he had always been better.
Thank you, everybody, just for coming out and supporting us.
But really, it was after season 1 of The Ultimate Fighter, the UFC was still losing money. Tough was their lifeline, and Chuck coached opposite Randy, and the show was a massive success, and their fight was really the start of breaking Chuck as a mainstream star. It sold 280,000 pay-per-view buys, more than double Chuck versus Tito.
Thanks to the accounting department.
And Liddell became the new champion. He'd then spend the next 2 years turning MMA from a niche product into a worldwide sport. Number 3, Conor McGregor. Unfortunately, this guy's career had a massive downfall recently, but that's not the way it started. For those fans that were around before he was punching old men or ending up in civil trials, he really was the inspiring figure in the sport. It all started when he was on the regional scene in Ireland. The combination of a new wave of Irish MMA fighters was timed perfectly with fan interest in the sport. And Conor came out at the top of all these guys for having more charisma, personality, and knockout power than anyone else. The idea of a fighter reaching the UFC from Ireland was being spoken into reality.
I can do something that hasn't been done before. I can show the Irish people true martial arts, something they have never seen before. So that's what we are in the process of doing.
And he made it seem like nothing was going to stop him from getting what he wanted.
The notorious Conor McGregor!
I mean, it must take some pretty dedicated fans to then campaign Ariel Helwani enough to get him on the MMA Hour before even signing a UFC contract.
I can't recall a non-UFC fighter getting this much attention as far as requests to be on this show. We finally obliged in our sort of international feel. Conor, how are you? Thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me, mate. Yeah, couldn't have thought you.
Dana White was in Ireland recently, and he was hounded about you. They were asking him all these questions. Every week, I get tons of fans saying, "Get the notorious MMA on the show."
It's only the beginning. You know what I mean? That's what I think. This is only the beginning. I'm here to take over.
It's just stuff you didn't really see with your average fighter. Those fans on board with McGregor at the time were some of the most dedicated and loyal we've ever seen in the sport. As predicted by Dana, Conor exploded to a wider audience when he did reach the UFC.
You know what, man? This is pretty normal. I've seen a lot of this. Very intense. Very intense.
Guys, who's gonna win? Tell me who's gonna win.
But there was always something prophetic about him. If he wasn't a fighter, with just the way he talks, I mean, he could have been in politics. He talks, people listen, and they believe him. It was at the point when he was going to fight Floyd Mayweather, he convinced massive amounts of people that he was going to win.
I'm the boxing guy. Watch me take over boxing. Trust me on that. They're all going to eat awards. The whole world is going to eat awards.
1, 2, 3. Sing it to me. You're fucking crazy if you think this man stands a chance. His head is too small.
Let me get some prediction. Who's gonna win?
It was 49 and now it's gonna be 49 and fucking 1.
Who's winning?
Obviously, you know, especially in hindsight, he didn't really have a chance. But that's who he was back then, and that's also why many fans talk about the legendary 2016 Conor McGregor. Number 2, Nick Diaz. Most people were surprised and impressed when the UFC's new top prospect was run through by this aggressive jiu-jitsu guy.
I called that fight. He walked into the octagon and started yelling, "Stockton, motherfucker! Stockton!" and Robbie Lawler's like, "What is happening here?"
His style and attitude made him popular as much as that win over Robbie did.
Yeah, well, you know, I box. I do a lot of boxing. I try to sell, you know, just because it says jiu-jitsu on my clothes, you know, I'm a fighter.
Nick left the UFC though and would start to do some legendary shit. First submitting the Pride champion Takanori Gomi with a go-go plata, almost impossible, and then to add to the novelty, testing positive for marijuana.
He tested positive for the Gomi fight, and they said there was so much weed in his system when they tested him that he had to be high when he was fighting.
If you were a 420 fan, it sounded like the most badass thing ever. And if you weren't, well, you couldn't not love his all-action style he then put into every fight.
And
Only one man across his next 10 wins made it to the final bell. He was a monster to deal with, coming at you with trash talk and punches. Even though all this happened outside the UFC, he was a guy everyone was paying attention to. And that popularity kind of culminated in what is now called the greatest one-round fight of all time against Paul Daly.
This is hands down the greatest MMA one-round fight I've ever seen in my life.
It was amazing.
Ever.
He had become so popular at that point, the UFC offered him an immediate title shot when he was coming back to the promotion. And this was after a 6-4 run at the start of his UFC career didn't really have him as a top prospect. Now he was completely undeniable as a superstar with an insanely dedicated fan base. And this is kind of the same for his brother Nate. But it wasn't just the wins. When these guys were losing, the Diaz brothers still had fans that rallied around them. Nate Diaz sat out for years unhappy with his contract, but still capable of beating the very best.
He says he wants to be released. He says he's done with the UFC. He asked for his release.
Nate Diaz has been around for a long time. He won Tough 5. He's had like 11 different end of the night bonuses. He's had title shots, headline 6 cards.
But we often don't see guys who are stars asking for releases.
And he doesn't move the needle.
It seems like he's very popular. That's why people keep...
Seems like it's popular when you're looking on fucking Twitter and some websites.
The hardcore still respected him, but the general fan base didn't know who he was, until they gave him a chance at Conor McGregor and he took everything that guy had been working for. I mean, this kind of an attitude is kind of common among their team, the Scrap Pack. And it's a group of guys who basically did things their own way and were loved by the fans for it. Number 1, Bas Rutten. Have you ever asked yourself, how did Bas Rutten become as famous as he did if most fans didn't get to watch 95% of his career? Pancrase hybrid wrestling had pretty much zero distribution in the US. It's because this guy is basically a legend. I mean, that's your answer. You have to take a look at that unbeaten streak in Pancrase and realize what he did over there had people calling him the most well-rounded and greatest martial artist in the world. A title that very few people have held. But of course, when he got to the UFC in 1999, none of the American audience had really seen those Pancrase fights, which also kind of added to the legend of a guy with an untouchable, incredible record that you had to hear about. You couldn't even watch it. Of course, then by winning the heavyweight championship, he also validated that position. And then it was his status as a legend over the years that grew him into a hero. Anytime a fan heard his voice on commentary or saw him do a funny interview.
It was 20 years ago. Do you think you might have competed inside the octagon?
Well, I was not supposed to do that, but I may have been a bad boy and done it.
You're wrong. I will slap him, pop, 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 pop in the face, grab his ponytail, maybe a headbutt here and there, and then fold him up. No doubt.
True or false, you once knocked out a Rottweiler.
Yes. That's true.
They'd have to dig up a 90s highlight reel, and another fan learned about the legendary run of El Guapo and what a liver shot was. And I think the fact that he ended his career on a 22-fight unbeaten streak helps all of that as well. Other fighters wanted to hear him talk about his legendary bar fights on podcasts, or the times he was arrested in foreign prisons, all stuff that added to his mythical status as the road warrior of MMA. He became tremendously popular over the years. He starred in major movies, voice acted characters in video games.
Say this is a reality show.
Yes.
2 men in the bathroom talking. That's reality. That's where we can be ourselves. Talk about women, talk about love, and talk about snipping the vertebrae in a man's spine.
How about going to the phones?
Which is all pretty crazy when you think that he's only had 2 UFC fights. And it's because Rutten has created such a fandom around himself and his brand with nearly next to nothing in terms of actual UFC fan exposure that he's got to be here at number 1. This was a fun video today, kind of looking at a little bit of a different perspective of some of these careers that we talk about quite a lot. I do want to say thank you to all the channel members out there and the Hall of Famers guys. We appreciate your extra support. If you guys want to find out what being a Hall of Famer is all about, click the button down below, click the link in the description. You can come and join us. So guys, anyone who you thought should have been included and that wasn't, or maybe you didn't agree with some of these, okay, you know, there were some choice picks in there. Let us know down below in the comments, and also give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. We always appreciate that. And subscribe if you're not subscribed as well, because we put out so many videos, you're going to miss them otherwise. Apart from that, guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. And yeah, we will see you in the next one.